Derek Bell's critical race theory has decimated the law schools of this nation, it appears.
Right.
And now we're in a position, I don't know what can be done with the law schools, but if this room were filled with woke students, what would be the secret to their hearts?
You're smart. So, I like you.
He never says that about me. I'm kidding.
So, let me just walk through the question, because I'm sure a lot of you are kind of like, what did you just say? And that's okay. So there's a theory of analyzing the world called critical theory. It was started by a teacher from the Frankfurt School. The Frankfurt School it was an adjunct of Frankfurt University in Germany. This was during Nazi Germany. They were not pro-Nazi Germany. They were in opposition of it, but they were Marxists. They started the Frankfurt School. They ended up becoming expatriates to our country. There's many of them as part of that kind of whole contingent. The most famous and most influential was one by the name of Herbert Marcuse. He started critical theory. Critical theory is nothing more than Marxist ideology, which is usually in economic terms, bourgeoisie versus the proletariat. That's what Marx argued, is that everything would be the working man versus the profiteering business person. Marcuse didn't believe that. He said that really we're nothing more than tribal groups. It's really skin color that matters. So you can have critical theory in law, you can have critical theory in science, all that sort of stuff. But he really came down, and the most popular was critical race theory. Before I go any further, every one of your young people is learning this, by the way. If they're in public school, if they're on social media, and most of your Christian curriculum has this, whether you realize it or not. So critical race theory, started in the 1960s, found a partner by the name of Angela Davis. Angela Davis has done more for the destruction of civil society than any person that I can think of in academia. She's a devout communist. She calls herself a communist. She's a member of the Communist Party. Angela Davis and Herbert Marcuse did many events across the country. So what is critical race theory? It's very simple. I'll break it into 5 or 6 attributes. Number 1, melanin is your master, meaning your skin color matters. Now, mind you, this is not an Enlightenment idea. What built Western society was the Bible, believing that neither slave nor free, Greek or Jew, we are all free in the blood of Jesus Christ, written by Paul in Philippians. This idea, we stewed over it, articulated by Augustine, enhanced by Aquinas, eventually spread thanks to the Protestant Reformation of Calvin. There is this idea that every life matters. By the way, we take this so for granted. You realize most of human history has not had what we call common sense. Seriously. So, this idea that every life matters and we shouldn't judge people on the color of your skin. Martin Luther King rightfully built an entire movement trying to say, I don't care about what? The color of your skin, instead about your content of your character. We used to teach our kids this. Now we're doing the opposite. First thing is melanin is your master. Number 2 is that racism is everywhere. This is the second thing they teach in critical race theory. What does that mean? That there is no institution, no conversation, no company where racism does not exist. The argument of critical race theory is that if you live in the West, it has been built for white supremacists, by white supremacists, and can only be challenged if you blow up the entire thing. Number 3, they believe that dialogue is evil. They believe that if you have a discussion with somebody you disagree with, you are only validating the incumbent power structure. They do not believe in dialectic. They do not believe in what Christ brought to the world, which is conversations that need to happen. Christ was the greatest communicator. He was unafraid to do it. We call him Logos for a reason. You need that kind of dialectic so that you can have civil society. They don't believe in it. Just read their literature. The 4th thing when it comes to critical race theory is that it's totalitarian in nature. It is not just what you do, it's what you don't do. White silence is violence. You hear that recently? It's not that you're doing something, it's that the fact you exist, it's a problem. If you don't post the black square, you're a bad person. It's not that if you post the opposite square, you're a bad person. It's if you don't do what they tell you to do, they're going to come after you. The 5th thing is this, is they believe science, math, reason, and empiricism, which was given to us thanks to the Enlightenment, are all instruments of white supremacy. They think that Newtonian physics, force equals mass times acceleration, object at rest will stay at rest. The second law of thermodynamics, inevitable decay. All those things are just excuses to keep white people in power. If you think this is insane, you're right. But every single law school in the country teaches this now, with the exception of a couple.
Yeah.
Every seminary teaches this. The Southern Baptist Convention has endorsed critical race theory. James Lindsay and Peter Boghossian, two atheists, are speaking out against this because they are Enlightenment atheists who actually believe that science, math, reason, speech, dialogue are important, which it is. And they are finding now newfound partners on the evangelical right where we actually can agree that God gave us math to make sense of the natural world, that science affirms our faith. We have different ways to view how we use science, but at least we agree it's important. Does all of this start to make sense as to what's driving these people now? They judge you on the color of their skin. They don't believe in dialogue. They don't believe in math, science, or reason. Just look at the Smithsonian Museum last month, where they came out with an entire statement funded by your taxpayer dollars, African American Museum, where they said being on time, speaking proper English, having an intact nuclear family, staying married to one person, they're all attributes of whiteness. Here's how I can sum it all together. Critical race theory is so unbelievably dangerous, it'll disintegrate this country without us ever realizing it. There's only two ways to govern people. And this is the easiest way you can explain it to a critical race theorist. You can govern people by talking, speaking, and convincing. That's the Aristotelian method. Christ did it better than anyone else. Or you can govern people by force. That's it. You can organize every single government in the history of the planet in one of two buckets. Now, there's more nuance once you get into it. Stalin, force. Mao, force. Mussolini, force. Pol Pot, force. America, speaking and convincing. But what if you think dialogue's not important? You go in that second bucket quickly.